Okay, so I hope everyone could see this. If not, it's not a problem. So this is the official School of Tactical Periodization. So this is the company that has the legal authorization to use its commercial name. So now that you got in touch with us, you are able to question us on any class or any course, any book, any article, or whatever situation that you may want to participate that says tactical periodization, but at least get in touch with us and see if it's if we have to do anything with it. If not, well, now at least you know, at least it's not official, and the risks that it has is that it may lead you on a different path than the original version of tactical periodization. Okay, so this interview with Marc dos Santos is inserted in the Professional Master on Tactical Periodization, which is the course that goes the most in-depth on this methodology. It lasts for a whole year with a presential part in Portugal. It lasts for 1 week, presential from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. here in Porto, in Portugal, and you will live an experience with the Portuguese culture, the Porto culture, which is different from the Portuguese culture. It has some particularities that are very, very interesting, at least on our opinion. It's very demanding because it has a lot of training hours, but also it's an experience that you guys shouldn't miss because it represents a whole new course inside this course. The spaces between lectures, the lunch times, the informal moments, the gathering of coaches, the networking, it's an experience you will never forget. So you'll get, I don't know, you'll get a professional certificate, you'll get the chance to enter our program, our training for trainers program, if you wish to become a trainer on tactical periodization, job market, and some other features. And talking about this particular event, today this interview will be led by Jorge Reis, which is one of our top coaches and trainers on this school. He's very present on the professional master. George, thank you for being present and for leading this interview, for giving us the chance to do this. And Marc dos Santos will be with us. He's been recently champion for the MLS with LAFC, but he's been winning since, I don't know, 2007. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Marc, but it's been quite a winning streak, and in so various contexts, that it's quite an achievement. So without further ado, please, George, let me pass you the ball and keep this game on the go.
Thank you, Philippe. It's my pleasure, and thank you everyone for coming. And most important in this moment is to tell Marc how much we appreciate his availability to share with us, to be here. Even today, I had the opportunity to talk with Professor Victor Fraud about this interview and about Marc, and he perfectly remembered moments that he shared with Marc here in Porto, in different moments that Marc visited to know from FC Porto methodology in that time when Professor was in the club, then visiting directly the professor, also in Boa Vista, visiting some other Portuguese coaches. And the professor also, Marc, sent a message that whenever you come to Porto and you want to talk with him, it will be a pleasure for him to receive you and to spend the time you want with him, and be welcome to this official space, tactical periodization. And without taking too much time, once the reason for everyone to come is to hear from you directly, I just gonna do a brief presentation. Marc career, and any moment you feel the need to add something or correct me, please feel free, Marc, please. Since 2007 in Canada, with Trois-Rivières attack, Marc already had the opportunity to achieve some important trophies with Canada Cup, Open Canada Cup champions, and CSL. Then that opened opportunity to join the staff in Impact Montreal, where first as an assistant coach, he contributed with his knowledge to the USL Championship. Then he became head coach of Impact Montreal. After that, he had some experiences in Brazil with Palmeiras, under 15, achieving also the national title. Then the Desportivo Brazil, where he was coach and also technical director. And then going back to Canada with Ottawa Fury, where he arrived to the finals of NASL, and in the next season with other club, now in Kansas with Slope Rangers, he achieved again the finals, now in a different competition with USL. So he became the first coach to achieve in 2 consecutive years through finals in 2 different competitions, and that also led the opportunity to join San Francisco Deltas, where he once more kept the road or the route of trophies with winning the NASL, and then the 3 seasons after a short spell in LAFC as assistant coach. I'm not sure if you really started there once you were invited to Vancouver Whitecaps, where you've been since 2019 till 2021, and this year you, as Philippe said, joined LAFC as assistant coach from head coach Steve Sherondolo, and quite recently had the opportunity to win the most important trophy of MSL. And even in that final, we had here some other American coaches visiting us, some students of our official master, and we were following with them that incredible final that was only decided in the limit after extra time and every suffering you may have experienced. So congratulations, Marc, and welcome once more.
Thank you very much, George. I feel first of all very small and very honored for the invitation. When George and Philippe got in touch with me, I felt extremely honored to be here today. I know I'm going to be sharing with a lot of people that have a very good football minds. I'm sure very good football ideas. So I will try in the best of my ability with a lot of humility to share with you guys my different experiences. I know, like Josh says, behind every success, there was also moments of difficult moments where you learn and you try to keep growing as a coach. And this is why I'm here today. I want to keep growing. I even intend continue learning about tactical periodization that has evolved a lot, probably from the day one that I got in touch with it until today. And guys, look, I'm going to be I'm a very open guy. You'll see it in this interview. For me, my availability, George, is very easy right now because we're in the off season. I just take care of my dog that is over there right now and my kids. So it's quite easy for me to be here too. But guys, I want to make sure that it's very open, that I could share as much as I can. I will share with you, if George opens that, a little bit what I faced in Brazil and the reality of the North American market, the reality of the travel in MLS and how that maybe conditions the morphocycle and how we work in our club. So look, I'm a very open book. I know I'm in the middle of incredible football minds, and I'm very honored for that. And I hope I could give you guys my best.
All right, Marc. Thank you again. I'd like, first of all, to listen from you, so our audience can understand how was your first contact with the methodology, and what may have changed after you knew about it in your approach to training, to life.
So I knew very early that I wanted to become a coach. When I was I grew up I'm born in Montreal in Canada, but I left Montreal at the age of 8 years old. My parents are Portuguese, and I grew up in Portugal. My first contact with football, I played in the 3rd, 4th division of Portugal. I knew I wasn't going to make it as a player, but I was always very intrigued by the coaching side. My father was a coach in North America at the semi-professional level. So my first contacts with coaching was in the leadership side. It fascinated me how one person leading a group towards one goal. And at the age of 17, I was the coach of my high school team in Portugal, in a small city called Gafanha de Nazaré. And already there, I was coaching students that were 16, 15. And for some reason, I can't remember really well, but I ended up being the coach of my high school. Then growing and when I started to know that was the path that I wanted, after the European Championship in Portugal in 2004, I decided to go to Portugal. And through a contact online, one of the fitness coaches of Boa Vista called Ricardo Silva that worked in this past World Cup with Carlos Queiroz and the Iranian national team in this World Cup. Ricardo accepted me to go spend 1 week and look at Boa Vista, how they were working, and especially with the U19 team that was very close into the methodology of work. And in that week, Ricardo Silva kept on talking to me about Professor Vitor Frade. Before that, I never heard about Professor Vitor Frade. So my first contact was through Ricardo, and Ricardo was always talking to me about him, telling me I have to meet him, I have to meet him. And then that was my first connection with I would say my first contact with tactical periodization. So my start as a coach, I didn't have an idea. I knew I wanted to coach. My idea was very based on leadership, but not an idea of how to organize a week. How do I want to play? It was, everything was gray. And when I arrived when I arrived at Boa Vista, I started to get the first little lights of an organization in my head. And that was, I think Ricardo to guide me in some way towards that.
All right, so it was quite in the beginning of your career, right? This contact, so you were not conditioned by other ways of looking or approaching training.
No, the only ways was when I was playing. I remember I would question a lot of things. In training, I hated the long distance runs for nothing. And I remember when I played for Gafanha de Nazaré, we would go to the beach and we would run these dunas. I don't know how you call it, how you name it in English, but these mountains of sand that you would just run up and down. And I would always think that, but when we play 11v11, it does more to my body, and at least I touch the ball, I become a better player. Here I'm just running in mountains of sand. So already there I would question it, but without knowing what was right and what was wrong. I thought maybe this is good for the long term, but again, it was all in a gray area. I was in a very gray area.
When I was talking about your journey as a coach, almost every season you were in the finals, if not winning, or at least in the finals or close to it. It represents consistency in your seasons with your in your different contexts. I'd like to, in some way, start from the beginning. How you start to apply it. Where you start to apply first these ideas, and how was how people received that methodology, those ideas.
So after meeting with Ricardo Silva and spending time at Boa Vista, I end up having in my head I have to go to Porto. I have to meet with Professor Vitor Frade. I have to meet with Professor José Guilherme Oliveira, and that was clear in my head. So in 2006, I went back to Portugal. And when I went back to Portugal, I was technical director of a youth club in Montreal. So an amateur club. It's the people that work in North America and the United States or Canada. It's very common to have amateur youth clubs where you have a technical director that runs the program. And that was what I was doing. I went to Porto in 2006 and finally met with Professor Guilherme Oliveira, Professor Vitor Frade. And in that time, I had the opportunity, and I told you about that, to finally meet Professor Vitor Frade. And we walk in like a tunnel at Olival towards the training field to go watch the U17 training session back then. And while I was walking, it took 5 or 6 minute walk. That 6 minute was the most where I got more challenged in my life ever in coaching. It was a very calm talk. And the 6 minutes were incredibly challenging on building an idea of way of playing, how to train it, why to train it. And I remember just finishing that 5 or 6 minute walk and already having a very clear picture. Then I started buying books, reading a lot about it. And finally, in 2007, I got the opportunity to become the head coach of the B team, the reserve team of the Montreal Impact. My first weeks of applying it, I know I had to manage a lot of things, but I tried to apply it a lot by the book. And of course, today it's different with experience, but Monday was a Monday for me, and Tuesday was a Tuesday for me, and everything was by the book. I was very concerned with the seconds of recovery, the minutes of recovery, the why of a certain exercise. And I remember my first week of the preparation for the season, going into an 11v11 and doing it with very slowly, starting with build-up, starting with the progression from build-up. And the players were always looking at me like, are we gonna go run now? Are we gonna, because the North American mentality has a lot based on the physicality part. And when you bring a way of working like this, in the beginning, there's a lot of questioning still. And it wasn't players challenging me, it was more players trying to understand, oh, is this okay for me? Can we do this and still become ready to play? And then with the weeks, there was more and more acceptance, I would say, through the way of working.
I'm sure that these results that you fastly achieved also were quite useful in the sense of the convincement of the belief of everyone, not only the players, but also the structures, the people around the technical stuff.
There's no doubt that winning is always something that helps you grow, and players accepting it more and questioning less, and players from other teams hear from other players and want to be part of something like that. But winning for me also doesn't only englobe the way of working. You know, I one day I read a quote from Professor Vitor Frade saying, coaches that only know about football, they don't know about anything. And then with time, I understood about recruiting the right player, recruiting players for the way you want to play, recruiting players that have some habits with the way you train, recruiting players that understand what you want to do, and then having staff around you that also believes in how you work. This is crucial. And maybe later in the interview, we could touch about my first meeting with Steve Cherundolo and how he was already a little bit in tune, or he heard a lot about this way of working, and he wanted to surround himself with people that would also help him apply this way of working. So I think having the right staff, I think recruiting the right players, the right mindset of players, and then working in the right way with consistency, that allows you or puts you in a better position to succeed. That's what I believe in.
No, for sure, we'll go to that point as a key point. Once you've in some way switched between head coach and assistant coach, and it's interesting how in these different positions, all the implementation of methodology was realized. Before that, you talked about an interesting point in related with the way of playing and the recruitment to be aligned with that. How you understand this problematic of developing an identity, a way of playing, how you use to generate that identity in your teams? How are the main aspects that you, if there is a pattern between different teams you've been, or you are quite more adaptable to the context and the players you have? How you used to manage that reality?
So the first of all, as a coach, me and all of you, every participant in this Zoom knows that we all have a belief in an idea of play. I would say that my idea of play as a coach is very similar, very close to what LAFC was this season. A lot of the beliefs I have as a coach incorporates what LAFC is. But I remember in 2009 when we won the USL championship with Montreal, we played in a 4-4-2 diamond, very possession-oriented type of team, very aggressive in the loss of possession. Then when I was with Seoul Park Ranger, Ottawa, or even San Francisco, was more very pragmatic teams looking to attack the space and behind of the opponent, waiting for the mistake of the opponent. Ottawa was a 4-3-3. Seoul Park Rangers was a 4-2-3-1. San Francisco, we played with a back three. So different systems, but everything was, I think, based on the evaluation of the roster coming in. And I think that's an important work that the coach has to do when he comes into a different place. The luck I had with Ottawa and San Francisco is I was able to build the roster from zero. I had a blank white sheet, and from zero I was able to come close to what I wanted as a coach. In Vancouver, for example, I wasn't able. So I was always living in a very gray area. And I will tell you by my experience, when a coach is in a gray area, you don't know if you want to be high, you don't want if you be low, and you're always in between and everything. That's when it becomes really difficult. That gray area was very hard for me, and it gave me trouble. And then I realized that success is when you're able to evaluate your roster, being able as a coach to adapt mentally and quickly, very quick, because we all know we have less and less time as coaches. And look, I know somebody here from that I heard is in Uruguay. Probably because I was in Brazil, Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, you have even less time than maybe you have in MLS, that there's a little bit more patience. But even in MLS, more and more, we have less time. So our ability as coaches to arrive at a place, evaluate the roster, evaluate the profile, and then based on that, give an idea of play to also have you put yourself in a situation to have success, that I think is crucial if you want to have success in a club.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So we can say that there is an ideal of way of playing for Marc, as you said, that more or less everyone here may have an ideal that in the macro patterns, how each one would like his team or her team to express an identity. But in other contexts, you felt the need to be more flexible and more and adapt to the players that you had. How you felt in that environment when maybe you are not feeling so deep what you are developing? How is that process? As we also understand that when we are developing something that we really believe and you really like, is quite more natural.
Yes.
Sometimes we have to do this kind of adaptation in terms of getting the best of what we have. How was this process?
I think, look, I always talk for me. This is my experiences, and I'm sure all of you guys have different experiences and different ways of doing it. I think there is moments as a coach that you arrive in a place, you take your ego, you put it in a drawer, and you say, hey, ego, stay here for a little bit, because now it's not about me, it's about the team. And your ability to do that might put you in a position to have some success. My other thing was the morphocycle. Having an idea of training in an organization in the week always gives me the faith that would allow my players to arrive to a result faster than others. That was something that in my head was very permitted. It was inside a structure that I believe that if we train with clarity, and the message through video and through the repetition of the way we want to play, I think it's going to get everybody into the same page as fast as possible. Then what I've used as a coach is having a leadership group, and me with the leadership group getting into an idea of how we want to play. Always with my major idea being the number one, but then from there being able to adapt based on, I remember in Ottawa, we started the season, the year we went to the final and we won the clausura of the NSL. We started the season with 5 games, 5-0-0. From Jornada 1, match day 1 to match day 5, 0-0-0-0-0-0-0-0-0-0-0. And after that, we won 3 games in a row, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. So we beat a record of 8 consecutive games without conceding. So there was a belief in the players of the way we defended was right. But me as a man, as a coach, I became a little bit ambitious. I said, now we could press a little bit higher. Now we could go higher and score more. And when we started just to bring the lines a little bit higher, the next 2 results changed against us. I had a leadership group, meeting with 3 of the players, and our number 6 Irish player called Richie Ryan, he said, Coach, why are we going up too much? We're good here, don't worry, this line and how we're defending right now. And then we ended up coming back and ended up going towards the final. So I think George is a little bit of taking the ego and of the coach, putting aside, getting some input of the players, understand the profile of the players that you have, and be very coherent with your week of work. For me as a coach, the coherence of the week of work has been crucial since 2007. And I know a lot of things I did in 2007 has to be readapted today in 2022, but the coherence of the week, the coherence of staying in the way you think and the way you work, it becomes very comfortable for the player to grow.
That's very rich, the message you are sharing with us, this idea that we as a coaches, we have to be there to facilitate what the players have, to take the best of everyone, and to, in this way, to potentiate their qualities in a collective and synchronize it and synergized way of interact.
Let me, George, let me share you another example that you guys are probably gonna like this one. When we signed Giorgio Chiellini at LAFC now, we defend corner kicks with 3 zonal and the rest man marking, and we have this important player in the middle that clears a lot of the percentage of balls. And when Chiellini arrived, the first time we worked on defensive corner kicks, we put Giorgio there in the middle. The session ended, and Giorgio came to speak with me, and he said, Coach, have me mark. Don't put me in the middle. Let me mark their most important player. And me, I ask, but why? You win every ball in the middle. And then he gave me his reasoning why. Because at Juventus and the national team, he always did that. It's his comfort. Then we added another player there. And this is a way where you as a coach, you could decide, and sorry, you could say, no, F off, you stay there in the middle because we believe you're going to clear everything. Or you go, no, we could make another player be in the middle and keep a player like Giorgio in a position, in a role that he's very comfortable with. And then we ended up doing well in those moments, I think also based on feedback of a player like that. So this is only another example on how I believe that with a certain structure, having feedback of players really helps you grow in some way.
That shows how important it is to be open to receive and not look to the role of the coach as someone who has always to impose, to give, and to command in a directive way. And if you really leave our ego out, we learn a lot from football, from the players, and in the end, as some of the top coaches used to say, to know about football is to know about the players, and that's the best approach. And at the same time, it's one of the most common misunderstandings about tactical periodization, because people used to refer to this methodology as the coach is the one who has to develop a way of playing and go and implement it. And it's absolutely not about that. And it's important that, as Philip said in the beginning, people at least give a chance to listen from the Professor Victor Frad to understand that the process should be an ecologic process, and as Marc is sharing with us, I'd like to understand, Marc, in terms of what was this experience in different contexts, and as we said before, achieving the final standings of the competition, so having a large number of matches in each one of them. How was the management in these different environments of the implementation of methodology? There were some special challenges in some of these contexts. What were the main difficulties you had to manage?
I remember, and I'm going to keep this, I'm going to write this word down so I go back to it. I remember one conversation with Professor Vitor Frad. He spoke to me a lot about the culture of where you are. And me, I was starting. When you start the culture, what does that mean? The culture is that in Brazil, you have rice and black beans in every meal. If you have rice and black beans every meal at LAFC, our nutritionist is going to lose his mind. He's going to absolutely lose his mind. And in Brazil, they do it all the time. And understanding culture. When I arrived in Brazil was my first impact with culture, because I arrived at Palmeiras and I went to coach the team juvenile. And Cesar Sampaio brought me to Palmeiras. Today is the assistant coach of Brazil. And Cesar, and he said he wanted to start changing the idea of training in the academy in Brazil, in the academies and development in Brazil. So he brought me like to be a guinea pig. You guys know what a guinea pig is. It's like the animal where you test the drug or you test something. And he wanted me to do my own thing in the academy. But now you guys have to understand the context. I come from coaching Montreal. I'm born in Canada. Yes, I'm Portuguese, Portuguese passport, Portuguese parents, but I'm born in Canada. My last club was Canadian and coaching in a North American league. And I arrived in a club like Palmeiras, and for the South American people that are here, you guys know that in South America, even coaching at juvenile, U19, U17, U15, it's you have to win, huh? You have to win. I remember my first contacts in Palmeiras, arriving in the academy and say, hey, where's Johnny? Oh, Johnny got fired. He lost 3 games in a row. And me, I was saying, but he coaches the U13 team. Yeah, but yeah, you lost 3 in a... So I was in that environment, but I went and Cesar was clear to me. He wanted me to write a document called Visão Verde, Green Vision Project, and it was related to a document that would be a guide to the academy in Palmeiras. And he only asked me, Mark, you're weak, work your weak. Don't look on your right, don't look on your left. So we had a little bit of an island. We had an island in Palmeiras of a youth team working in a total different way. So after 3 months, we have this meeting with all the academy coaches and the technical director, and he was hard on me. Our team was winning, we were doing well. With Palmeiras, you're also blessed of working with the best young players, right? Probably similar to Porto, Benfica in Portugal. But our way of working was very different. Our week was very different. And I got a little bit attacked because the technical director says the youth team is only working tactically. You always work tactically and learn tactically. You don't do rachão. And rachão is this of mixing and just play and very free for all. And one day of the week had to be, there was a rope with a ball, and players had to be in the line and jump and hit the ball, and very, very unique. Finally, after the 10 months, we won the Brazilian Youth Championship. There was the same meeting with the technical director, and now he was telling the other coaches, you guys have to work more tactically, you know. So the culture being in the concept of Brazil, what I realized though is I had to be very strong with the way of working. I had a belief, the players were embracing it, the players were growing, even young players. So I know there's a lot of discussions of tactical periodization and youth development. Even the young players were growing and becoming better. Many of them going to the youth Brazilian national team. We went up winning, and then I go to Desportivo Brazil. The reason I went to Desportivo Brazil is Desportivo had already a lot of people very curious with the tactical periodization, and a lot of people that wanted to work on this way. So it was more of a family trying to work in that way, very different than Palmeiras was. That was my first cultural shock, I would tell you, Jorge, with the trying to implement this methodology and way of working.
And before going to this particular season with LAFC, you mentioned also this gray area. You mentioned about this period in Vancouver. In any moment, you felt, I don't know, yourself or from external forces, doubts in terms of methodology, in terms of approach, or
no, my fight is this, and maybe many of you already experience what I'm going to say, or many of you one day will experience what I'm going to say. I arrived in a club where the MLS has a salary cap. So it's very different of Europe. Europe, you're pissed off with a player, loan him in second division, loan this guy, go get this guy, go get... MLS doesn't work like that. Even when you have players that you don't like very much, if you loan, they stay in your cap. And it's not as easy to move players around. And when I arrived, we had just sold Afonso Davies to Bayern Munich. I never worked with Fonzie, and 18 players left. So then 18 new players came from Tunisia, Gabon, Uruguay, Argentina, everywhere. So the challenge there was very big. And the other thing, there was a performance team that was from the club and from the ownership. So I almost arrived in a place that the performance team was bigger than anything else. They had a big input in the team. And that for me was challenging, always having to educate. What I learned, and then a few months later, COVID hit. The Canadian teams were not allowed to play home. So we played 38 consecutive games away from home with no fans. All of it was very challenging. But what I learned is, and my advice to everyone is, every time you make a move to a club, but you have the power to choose. Because when I went to Vancouver, I had the power to say yes or no. I understand that sometimes as coaches, we have to go just because of an opportunity. And we have to say yes sometimes to things that we're not even sure we want to say yes to. But what I would say is, I should have studied much better the environment I was going to. I never had doubt on the way of working, never. Actually, my fights with performance was because of that, my fights with performance. But tactical periodization is also like, in a different way, believing in God or not. And people that believe in God, sometimes their faith gets tested. The biggest heroes of the Bible got tested in their faith. So I think that we all go through moments where you get tested here and there. But I have to say that I thought too much about all the successes that the methodology gave me. So being in one place in a different context was not going to question what happened in the past. And the proof is that after that, I went to LAFC, working very closely with Steve, being as coherent as possible with the way of working, and we end up winning. So I think that it says a lot on the methodology.
Absolutely. Explain, please, Marc, to us this first contact with the head coach, how it was in terms of, you said he was kind of curious in terms of trying a different approach. How it is, this process of being assistant coach and having a way of training in terms of openness from the head coach, in terms of sometimes adaptation between each other.
So when Steve called me, I only knew Steve as a player. He was an important player for the US. He has more than around 400 games, something like that, in Bundesliga. But it was maybe his first big experience as a head coach. Previous to that, he was assistant coach in Germany, and this was his big first opportunity. But what Steve told me is, I don't know, George, in what context and how deep, but when he did his pro license with the German Federation, they had already some topics touching tactical periodization. Now, maybe you guys have to go and see what are they saying about it. I don't know how much, but he told me that there was already some topics on tactical periodization at the pro license in Germany. So for him, when he spoke with me, he said, it's the only thing that makes sense for me as a coach. So there was already this, it's like when you meet a girl and you start dating, you have to have a little bit of something in common. And me and Steve, that something in common was his big curiosity to grow in tactical periodization. And then we had our conversation was very fluid, very direct. And since day one of work, I felt we've been working together for 10 years. And I think that that's why it brought me to want to go back to LAFC and wanted to work with Steve. So this was our first connection.
Interesting. I guided the conversation into this particular season with the AFC. I was also kind of studying the season in terms of also the construction of the squad. You talked about this conversation to put in common about the methodology. What about the way of playing? And this recruitment, it was something also aligning with the board. It was something that was an entity that was constructed through the process in terms of what players were coming. How was this process?
Yeah, it's a very good point. In 2017, when LAFC was being created, and the first touches with building the first ever roster of LAFC that competed in 2018, there was a very clear idea from John Torrington to the first coach, Bob Bradley, and going from there, that the type of fan base we would have deserved a rock and roll, I would say, approach, a heavy metal approach of playing. And if you, I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to go to Banc of California or a game in LA. The fans have a big say, of course, not vocal, but the way they behave on the type of play. They're very active during the 90 minutes. They don't, in a good way, they don't shut up. When we go into the locker room at halftime, they continue singing. And this constant beat designed in the head of the club, we have to have a way of playing that is aggressive, that goes after the opponent, that has a strong reaction to loss of possession, that has verticality when we win the ball. That way of playing was always clear for John Torrington, the CEO, the owners, that any coach that would coach LAFC or be part of LAFC would have to embrace that. So me imagining a game at LAFC where it's very pragmatic, very waiting for mistake, very a big percentage of moments without ball possession would be almost impossible in our stadium. So that's why the influence of our way of playing.
All right, feel free anytime, Marc, if you want to share some examples to define or to show us a bit of the main patterns of
I'll start before touching on some points on training. I'll start just by showing you like a quick video on our stadium. Maybe it's gonna, if you guys just look at the video and start imagining an idea of play through the video. And that's also when I came back to little things that Professor Vitor Frade told me years ago. And this of culture, and one day he spoke to me about culture of the club, culture of the stadium. And I remember, and you guys are very familiar with that, when Porto plays home, when it's not a Champions League game, and they're 1 minute and a half without the ball, there's a culture of whistle. Fans start to whistle. It's very unique. And hey, guys, get the ball back. It doesn't happen as much in Champions League, but home, the idea of trying to dominate. So I'll share with you a video of our fans, and then I'll share with you a video of a moment that is very important. And when I talk moment, it's important to highlight that the game, I'm not able to divide the game. Before I did that a lot. When I started implementing or trying my best to implement this methodology, I would put in compartments: defensive organization, transition to offense, and I would work in this and then pass to this. But then with the years, I saw how global. I want us to be attached with the other, but I'm going to share with you guys how it evolves or reaction to the loss of possession. It's something I'm going to share with you right now. Okay, so let me just share. I hope you guys could see my screen.
Yes, we can.
There's nothing bad, don't worry about. So so just my first clip is just give you an idea of so if you just in the little part that I shared with you guys, if you think about this type of environment, it's very difficult to have an approach that I would call very pragmatic, we tend to have an approach on the field of a team that wants to aggress all the time. So in this clip right now, you're going to see a moment that is very important, and we try to work it a lot, is the moment where we lose the ball and the reactions of the player to the loss of possession. The clips go from 2018 to 2022. So you'll see in 4 years, different, the same type of behavior, okay? So we're in black here. This is against Houston home. This is a game in 2018. So you see ball loss, very aggressive reaction to recover it, having players inside, and I could talk afterwards how it's important that the way you defend is related also to the way when you win the ball, or the way you attack is related also to the way when you lose the ball. And you'll see again from there, trying always to attack the middle and the opponent. Now it's a game against New York. You see us with the ball. This is 2019 now, 1 year later. Trying to attack. So the play is developing. So if you see here, this is our center back. There's a 1v1 situation here. Center back coming here, winning the ball back. Again, trying to get in as fast as possible, penalty. This is 2019 again. The team is in white. I just want you guys to focus in the moment of the reaction to the loss of possession. You see here, look at the white players who are in white. Aggressive, aggressive, aggressive. Win the ball back. First intention, try to go forward right away. If not possible, yes, we try to secure the ball and build from there. But if I want you to see that the constants on being aggressive to the loss of possession. Okay, this is this year. This is LAFC 2022. Loss of possession, trying to go to the ball, trying to force the mistake in the opponent. And then we have wingers inside to attack the goal centrally right away. This is again another clip from this season. So again, I want you to see the behavior of the team in black. We're building, we're trying to attack the goal. The opponent has a lower block. Pay attention to the left back here. So if you see here, the left back, I want you to pay attention when we're going to lose the ball. What's going to happen? Cross comes. Here, look, strong reaction. He goes, this is the left back. We win the ball back. We have players centrally to try to attack the ball and the goal right away. Then what we could talk about is this situation here of the offensive marking, 1v1, almost 1v1 here, 1v1. This is a choice and something that we want as a staff. It's a risk that we take because we believe in the rewards. Of course, we could have a long discussion about that, but this is the belief we have. And this last clip is just to show you how we started the game in Columbus this year. So this is in Columbus, and you see the team mentality right away. So then we could discuss on profile of player, what type of players or profile could help you be in situations like that. We win the ball, centrally try to attack the goal right away. We weren't able, our right back joins the attack. Cross, win the ball back, we have numbers, second post, and goal. So Jorge, I don't know if I was able at least to one idea of by respect of our club and also the coaching staff. I don't want to share all the ideas of our day, our style of play, but I think this idea of the moment where we don't have the ball or we lose the ball could give you guys some of this related to the culture of the club, the fans, this rock and roll, heavy metal of way that we have to be as a club.
Absolutely, it is a quite clear picture since the first video. In the end, is a recent club, but looks like already as quite defined his identity in terms of people wanting to see action, to see spectacle, to see things happening, and a proactive team. And then we could see that in the videos you shared. Thank you. I'd like to understand in the beginning of the process in this season, and some players joined, and some of them became quite important in terms of minutes played, like Elias Sanchez, like Acosta in the midfield, Cifuentes, as much as I could follow and study in preparation for this conversation, had a quite interesting evolution in terms of consistency since the beginning. So I'm talking about 3 players in midfield. Did you have the need in terms of beginning of the process to share with the players with videos for where you wanted to go, or it was quite implicit on them in terms of the way the team was playing in the past seasons?
So when we signed Elias Sanchez, for example, is a player that grew up in the Barcelona academy, played for Barcelona B. A lot of concepts of his game was similar to what we wanted. So when he played for Sporting Kansas City was very similar in some ideas. They had some concepts of moment loss of possession and some of pressure concepts that were very similar to some similarities to what we wanted to do. So when we bring Ilya, we had to do very little with him. Intelligent player, I'd already lived some of the things we were talking about. Kellen and Cifuentes, it was different. It took more coaching to organize them in the team, but their profile as players, their ability also to react, to run in the right moment for the model was very clear to what we wanted. So it took little, and that's why you saw those 3 being consistent with the 11, very consistent, I would say even.
Absolutely. in the end, some players, if they are familiar with the concepts and are aligned with ideas we want the team to present in these macro scales, they kind of help us to win time, to make things happening faster,
Exactly.
and to kind of being a coach also inside the team as a player. Can you talk to us a bit about some of these players that came from South America? There is also the central back. I don't know how much time he was in this season, that he went to Villarreal recently, Mamadou Fall.
Yes.
Some of these players, I read, for example, Cifuentes in the beginning had some difficulties, and then with the coach in some interviews, he said that the player was open to receive and to learn new things and to improve his game. How is this individual development taken in consideration in the whole?
You know, one of the things that I think we don't talk about enough, because sometimes we're so focused on our books and doing things by the book, and we don't talk enough sometimes about the quality of the people / player, the quality of the person. And we were lucky this year, I would say, at LAFC to have very good people. The center back you were talking about was probably Jesus Murillo or Eddie Segura. Fantastic people, but also at the same time, somebody that is willing to learn, that wants to understand the way we play, that is receptive in the video sessions. When you have a group that goes to a video session and is receptive, goes to the field, do an exercise that he saw through the video and asks questions about it. Oh, this is why we saw that. Oh, yes, coach, this is why we have to be aware of that. It accelerates so much the process. And I know that sometimes as coaches, we don't have time to get all the roster that we intended. And even with experience, the more you coached, you're gonna have once or twice in your life shit groups, sorry the expressions, but really bad group of bad guys that are not receptive. Their ego is too big, and then all the process is slowed down. Everything is slower, and I think guys like Cifuentes, Murillo, Eddie Segura, Chiqui Palacios, was all guys that come from different areas, Ecuador, Colombia, Uruguay, but very receptive. And I think it's important for the club when you do recruitment to also understand, yes, there's the quality of the player, but what about the quality of the person? And then the other thing, George, is arriving in an environment where he feels he's a little bit at home. A lot of the Latin players we have, they come to LA, but for example, all our chefs in the kitchen are Mexicans. They speak with the players in Spanish. The coaching staff all speak Spanish. We all communicate with the players. The player arriving in a place where he still feels familiar and there's a little bit of home, it's all things. And you touched a point very well when you touched about accelerating process. I think it's very, very important to have the surrounding that allows him to accelerate it.
And talking a bit about the game, you talked about that main characteristic in terms of the pressure. I'd like to explore a bit in terms of these macro principles, in terms of what is, for example, you talk LAFC used to be with the ball in the 1-4-3-3, but probably in the defensive organization, they could have some variability in this structure to to condition the way the other team is moving the ball. How you used to manage that and why?
Yes, we have. We could talk about idea of play of the coach in a little bit versus strategy depending on the opponent. We always try to stay a lot in our idea of play, but then we understand by scouting the opponent that sometimes there's a reference based on a type of pass the opponent does, which he becomes very uncomfortable with. And we recognize that moment. So then we try, without losing our idea, condition the opponent to go to their uncomfortable zone. That's where it's going to be a big reference for us. Where we have a little bit of freedom is it's not in a game. So many things could happen in a game that it's very hard for us as coaches to, at least us, we're not the type of, it's always this guy that goes. Yeah, but sometimes this guy is not there. There's something that happened that now it's another guy that is there. But that the team as a whole understands that if it's not Paulo that is there, but it's Jimmy, this is still the area where the opponent is not comfortable, and we have to be very aggressive. So this is what I mean when we talk about the full idea that we have, and then adapting a little bit towards the strategy of what we saw in the opponent. Was I able to more or less answer your question?
Yes, and I was also willing to explore the idea, for example, of conditioning the building up of the other team to our internal spaces in our structure, and then take advantage of the combinations of Vela and Arango in front.
Yeah, it's a very good point you touched, because I had this conversation with you and Philippe a little bit, and by the way, thank you, because it was very rich for me also. But it's almost impossible, or it's impossible for you to defend in a way that you're not already thinking of, we're defending like this because we want to attack like this. And it has to be linked. And it's important that our players understand why we want to defend like this and why we want them in a certain position, to understand now when we win the ball, what happens from there. I remember when we got one player that came from Europe during the season, he helped us a lot, Dennis Bouanga. He came from Saint-Etienne. And Dennis defended in a way where he defended wider at Saint-Etienne. He defended as a winger wider, in wider positions. And when he arrived with us, he had to defend more narrow. And then he in the beginning, he started the exercise narrow, but with the exercise evolving, sometimes he would get to his natural wider and wider position. So it took a lot of days to bring him narrow and narrow. And then with video, he started to understand that when we won the ball, he started to see that, hey, when we won it, I was alone here, ready to go to goal. And we would say, yes, this is why we want you to defend here, because when we win it, you're already in spots that you could go directly to goal. So that was the evolution a little bit on bringing players to understand that our moment of defending and bringing the opponent sometimes to come inside was also related to our moment of winning the ball. And we all have to be challenged as coaches, that when we're explaining why we attack like this, we also have to be able to defend, because it brings us to also defend like this. And why we defend like this, it brings us to attack like this. And that's what we try to implement in our team and educate our players. And I could show you other examples of that.
I believe the key, as we used to discuss with our students, is to understand that the game is a continuum, and as you said, everything is linked and has to be linked also in the conceptual exploration that we may do about the ideas and about the concepts we are developing in our team, that we cannot disconnect, and then to generate contexts where they experience it also in this linked way. Before going to some examples that you may share with us, I was looking to the calendar, and there was a lot of periods where you have 3 days between matches, 4 days, sometimes 2 days. I imagine video was also an important tool for you, as you were mentioning, but how to develop habits, and as you said, some players were quite used to other things, in a calendar where you don't have almost time to train.
So I don't know if I could, I'm gonna try to share my screen again. And for those, I don't know how many of you are familiar to MLS, but this is the map of MLS. So you see in red, please, if somebody has a question, but in red, you see the time zone. So here, when it's 3:30 here, it's 4:30, 5:30, 6:30. And then you see there's one time zones. And then it's very interesting, also something that I'm trying to, one day, maybe I could share with you guys. I'm meeting with a lot of coaches from the NHL, the National Hockey League, because they're developed studies on sleep patterns that is fascinating. It's really, really interesting to try to optimize and have the player at the best of his rest and ability. We all know how sleep is important. But when you look here at the calendar, you see we're here. So LAFC is here. When we play at 3:30 here, is 6:30 in Miami. And also sometimes the calendar brings us to play Saturday in LA, then Wednesday in Minnesota, Sunday in San Jose, and then Friday in Miami. This brings a certain fatigue, I would say emotional fatigue in player. And I don't know if you guys are like me. When I fly 5 hours, I'm destroyed. And if I have one glass of wine in a plane, I think I arrived drunk after 5 hours of flight, you know? So there are a lot of things that happen in flights, and when we go through planes that is incredible. And now look, I'm going to show you an image of the same map, but now if we bring all this map to Europe, it would look more or less like this. So you talk about playing in France, and then on Thursday in Belarus, then go to Turkey on Saturday, then Moscow on. So this happens in Champions League once in a while. MLS, this happens every week during 10 months. So of course that when you try to bring this, and now you're talking about tactical periodization, our way of work, one thing that is crucial for us, George, that we've been prioritizing a lot is recovery. But then how we could talk is what type of recovery and what we do in recovery. So I'm going to share with you guys our week. That would be a challenging week. And this week is real. Okay, this is not a fictitious week. This week happened. Okay, so it was between May 14 and May 21st. This is a week where we played in Colorado. If you see here, the 14th, we play in Colorado. So you have the time of the game, and you have the time that we come back. Okay, so you have, we came back around 7 o'clock. Then we had a day off. This has been the challenging part for us. Is I hate to divide the group. I hate to call Group A and Group B, but there's this reality of a group that is playing a little bit more than the other. even for me, when I say group B, what I don't like is I'm diminishing a group, but this is only between us. I never call group B in front of the players. But here, these 2 days were recovery oriented, but we could talk about what we did in these 2 days. Then we played home against Austin. Then we had a work only with group B. Then we had a recovery, but had to prepare to the game on Saturday. But if you look here, there's another flight. There's a time of arriving in Columbus. And this is the time, the LA time. So what I could do maybe one day, George, is share with you guys the impact of times. And what we tried to do is all of our schedule always stay in the time zone of LA. So very fast. If we're comfortable having the team meal dinner at 7:30 in LA, that means that our team meal in Columbus was at 10:30. We tried everything always to keep the team in the same schedule as LA, not to have too much disruption when it came to the sleeping patterns and eating patterns of the player. So going through this morphocycle would be a discussion and very rich on time of eating, time of sleeping, time of travel, time of training. But this is a very common cycle in our work. So if you look here, we had a video session on Saturday, the set plays of Colorado. So at the hotel, we just give them an idea of defending and attacking set plays of Colorado, but we worked on that the week before. On Monday, we had video session, the pre-match of Austin. So preparing Austin and the patterns of Austin, or the idea of play of Austin. So we could have a little bit of work on it. The set plays of Austin here to have the guys ready for this game. And then we had another video session on Friday, pre-match Colorado and preparing Colorado. So what I could say in big lines, in our recovery session, we prefer doing 20 seconds of an exercise that keeps on putting the players in a comfortable way of our playing. We prefer doing 20 seconds of a moment and then rest for 2 minutes, 2 minutes and a half, then doing maybe 10 full minutes of soccer tennis, for example. That's our preparation in preparing a week. So even if we have to recover, we want to recover with our idea of play. Did I answer that question, George?
Absolutely, Mark. And we don't need to go too much deep and to explain everything today, as we already have more than 1 hour and a half. And
I love people. I love sharing. I'm a very open guy, but I think it's incredibly rich what happens with sleep. The studies are incredible. And if any of you has the opportunity to coach an MLS, my advice to any of you is be aware of the travel, be aware of the recovery, be aware of the sleep patterns of the schedule, because it really makes a difference in the 10 months, I would say.
Yeah, and once more is to understand the role of the staff and the coach, and once more leaving the ego out and understanding it's not about I have the need as a coach to make them learn this or train this, but what they need. And as you said, the needs are and should be focused on the recovery, and the how you already touched a bit on it in terms of this relative maximum intensity, these short periods, but keeping the dynamics of the way we want to express our identity and our dynamic, but with this intermittence, as you mentioned. Just to wrap up and to just share a bit about these contexts, as we call it in our methodology, contexts of propensity, as we are talking about the probabilistic concept. And you also mentioned before that even when we go to the field and we start applying these ideas, each coach has also a process of evolution in terms of how we create the situations and the goals we have on it, in terms of understanding that we don't train behaviors, but we train patterns and principles, and is once more a probabilistic concept. What ingredients you try to make sure that are present in these contexts you create, and how is this process of creation of this?
So I'll give you an example with maybe an example with training. Okay, so we would have maybe this is can you guys see? Am I still sharing my screen? Yes. This is an example of when I say we just want to enlight sometimes and stress in a good way the importance of our reaction with the smaller group, or reaction to the loss of possession. So this, after the activation, we had two groups. Okay, you see a group here on one side, you see a group here on the other side. And what we wanted to emphasize in this day was our reaction to the loss of possession, or attitude, or quickness, us closing down space. So this was an exercise that we did almost like a continuation of the activation to then go into the macro situation. The exercise is simple. You have two goals here, one group and one group here, and two goals here. And then one group is, you see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 players in gray, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 players in red. And the two blue always play with the team in possession. Always play with the team in possession. For 45 seconds or 40 seconds, the team in gray, they try to recover as much balls as they can. If they win the ball, they could score here, dribble out to this line, or dribble out to this line. Then we could talk about the exercise and other ideas and how to put it more rich. I'm sure we all have great ideas with that, but I want you to look at the concept. So for 40 seconds, the team that is in possession, they have to keep the ball. And if they lose the ball, they have to react and not allow gray to score or get out of the grid. So it's a form of trying to, if you see, so you focus in this group here, you see they have the ball, the exercise started, and now you have the gray team closing down, the team in possession having the ball, and then you see this is 35, 45 seconds. You see when they're gonna lose, they lose the ball, reaction, don't let them out, and get out again, and in possession again. So this is an exercise, George, that we would use to kind of start preparing them in their small behaviors into that macro behavior that we want into the maybe next exercise. There are days of recovery that we could do this exercise here. We do for 15 seconds. Sometimes it happens that they come for 15 seconds, this happen. Okay, guys, rest. But the importance of always living the habits of what we want. So then after this exercise, they went into, I'll show you here, into this bigger space here now, where you have the team in gray, stop. I stop here. The team in gray is the team that we're working more with. And you'll see, I want you to try to pay attention to their reaction to the loss of possession. But now comes a little bit, George, what you spoke about, the idea and when we spoke the idea and the strategy. If you see the red team are positioned in a 4-4-2, and they're in a medium lower block. And the reason was the opponent we were playing against defended this way. So we tried to also have the other team in a position how the opponent would be on the field. So you see, I'll just move forward in the moments. The gray team has the ball. We're trying to go through different ways and trying to build. Look, before I forget, I'm just going to tell you this. When we defend in here, when our team defend here, we ask our winger to be with this line here. And this goes a little bit to when we were speaking about us defending and incorporated and linking it to when we attack, so our winger is already going to goal. This is why the lines are there. But now staying with us in the moment we lose the ball, we try to attack the space and behind. We're moving forward. Offensive marking is happening. We lose the ball. Here, this player in our way of playing had to go. He had to go. He didn't go. It was a mistake. And now we're struggling, but there's still a reaction. Okay, I'll make it move. So I want you to see here, we win the ball back. We try to go to goal right away. Loss of possession. Here, reaction here. And now centrally, we try to attack the goal right away, having a player in and trying to finish the action, okay? I'll give you another example here. So it's very related to what you saw in our model, where again, we're building here. This is Chiellini, he finds the middle. And you'll see the team again losing the ball, reaction, closest goals, try to limit the opponent. We can go forward there, we go back. So this is very, very quickly in big lines how we would go from the activation, giving starting to give a little bit of behaviors through smaller exercise, and that could be reinforced into the big message of the team that we want. Of course, then depending on the day, we limit the amount of minutes we're in an exercise or seconds, the recovery time. These are all things that we're careful with when we're preparing training.
All right, Marc, thank you for sharing with us also these examples. From my part, I'd like to have a final question in terms of understanding also in terms of club and structure how things could be articulated. Before that, I'd like to, if someone wants to place 1 or 2 questions, we will not have time for more than 2. Please raise your hand or write in the chat, and we'll give you space in the end. My question would be about, as you mentioned, and as I think we all have this idea when you talk about the US, very developed country, a lot of technology, culture of fitness, and I believe the top club should also have a lot of inputs in terms of technology, in terms of data, in terms of equipment related with this technology. How is this managed in your context in terms of what use you do about data? Are the players using GPSs? What you control in terms of velocity, in terms of heart rate? Is this important? Is this something else that you take a look? How is this managed?
It's a question that if my answer comes out to the public, might be very
Okay.
it could look bad, you know.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I share a little bit with Professor Vitor Frade when he says that it's a cancer. I share with him that. What I think is, do I read it? I read the information when I get it, yes. Sometimes I get feedback from the performance team. The thing is that they already know us well. So, and they're good working with us, but they know what we think about all the numbers. But I'm gonna answer this. If it was only for, no, but if it was for GPS and for numbers of training, maybe Carlos Vela would not play all the time for us. And yet he plays, and he was very important for us to win the MLS Cup. So I think you as a coach, you have to take in what you believe. And there's information that could be valid for you. The information that is valid for us is a lot the game, the feeling, looking, what happens in training, the dynamics of training. I thank God that I'm still in a staff that are still that essence, and it's not in this robotic world. I hope I was not too controversial. I want to be careful with what I say.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Moving on, I write in the chat also asking if someone else wants to place any question related with what we've been talking, or something that you would add to our conversation. Please feel free. This is the moment. You can open micro, present yourself, and place the question.
Can I make a question for Mark?
Please.
I'll try in English. I would like to, first of all, thank you, Mark, for the presentation. And I would like to ask Mark.
Try to present yourself, please.
So my name is João Duarte. I'm Portuguese, but I'm working in Denmark in FC Midtjylland. And my question is regarding the Youth Academy and how Mark see the individual development training for skill acquisition and the tactical periodization in Youth Academy, if you can go a little bit more inside the topic.
Yeah, it would be a really big answer, right? And of course, if you have that question, it's because you also know it's very very rich. What I'm going to tell you is I believe in what we do at LAFC. So I'm going to give the example with LAFC. We have the idea of play of the club that I hope that in some way I was able to give you, João, a little bit of that concept. And now you have the quality of the individual. And what I like about LAFC is there's still an opening in the club, in the youth academy, to try to maximize all the qualities of the players so they can grow. I'll just give you a very fast example. If our U15 team has 3 top center backs, and the 3 have quality to reach the youth national teams, well, the club is not forcing the coach of the U15 to play with a back 4 and then leave one out. It's just a little bit of ideas that they try to keep the idea of play, but still by trying to make all of the best youth players grow in the academy. Then at LAFC, we have individual plans for young players. Let's say that we have a player that is technically very gifted, young, maybe 13, technically his decision making is fantastic, good quality in his pass, but very lazy in the moment of loss of possession. A player that doesn't like that side. Well, that player sometimes gonna have individual program. An example, receive a ball, pass between line to another example, to another player, and then react and try to defend a ball somewhere else. And we try to do that to maximize, but I think I just want to give you like little ideas of what we do, because it would be very difficult for me in one answer to answer all of your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It's a very complex question, John, as you know, and I also know you. You are aware of it. Thank you for, in a certain way, try to go into the point of the question. One last question, and please open the micro and go ahead. Open the camera too.
Well, if I may interrupt,
Yeah, please.
not placing a question. Well, Mark, thank you, because personally, this made me think about this. I talk about your presentation and your sharing. This made me think about a lot of things, especially around that recovery issues concerning maybe 15 or 20 hours of traveling every week. It shouldn't be easy at all. Looks like an NBA schedule, but we have in the chat window, we have some questions that sincerely we don't have the time to answer those, because it goes a little bit too much in depth about the methodology, and we don't have time for that. It's about we could spend, I don't know, George, help me out here, 6 months talking about stuff like this. But
no,
before the next,
let's just thank you, Marco, once more time from my side. It was a pleasure to share these almost 2 hours with you, and to, of course, learn from you and be intrigued about how to solve all those problems. As we also want always to emphasize, there is any formula, there's any magic recipe. We need to be able to feel the environment, to problematize all the things, but in a coherent way, in an articulate way. And well, some of these problematics that you also are asking here, as Philippe said, you need to understand the whole logic to be able to absorb any kind of answer that you would receive here in 1 minute or 2 minutes. So from my side, Mark, thank you very much. I pass the ball back to Philippe to close the interview. Thank you all for your time. See you.
thank you, George. Well, I was just about to say that there's this big difference. Well, we have a little bit of experience. Well, Jorge Reis has a lot of experience. Marc dos Santos has a lot of experience putting this into practice. Miguel Cardoso, who is here in the room, has a lot of experience putting this into practice for many years now. And there's a difference between understanding tactical periodization from a model point of view, where you can pick up a model and use it wherever you are, or on the other hand, that there's the original and concrete way of understanding it, which is to gather up sufficient knowledge to adapt it to any context. So there's no model to apply. but there's a lot of knowledge to gather and to create something your own from it. So I'd like to take the chance that Miguel Cardoso is here. Sorry, Miguel, about this abuse.
Okay.
So I've been talking to Professor Vitor Frade like every Wednesday, and he still talks about the event in Hamburg that we were in, and you got the chance to be there as well. And he speaks very lively about it still. It was good for him. He didn't want to go, as you know, but it was very, very good. And he sends you a hug. I don't know. Well, I was guessing that you will be here, but since you are, he sends you a hug. Also, Marc dos Santos, we told him that we were having this with you, and he reminded of you, of course, and he sends you a big hug also, and best of luck. Me also, in the name of this official School of Tactical Periodization, I thank you, and it was quite an honor to have you. I'm really thankful that you accepted this, and I hope to see you soon. I would just like to ask Miguel about that feeling. That what do you think that you were a part of this presential part of the Professional Masters, this last edition, and I hope you'll be a part of many others to come. But what do you feel that the people here present that didn't yet have the chance to participate in such a program, what do you feel that they could get from it? Because I see a lot of familiar faces here, current students, former students. I see some guys that just applied for the 4th English edition who were accepted also. And please, Miguel, can you give us a little bit of your experience, of your insight of what they can get from this?
Yeah, I think that we can quote Marco, and we can go back to the beginning of his presentation when he said that the first 5 minutes with Professor Vitor Frade were life-changing, let's say. They opened his mind. He probably put in him many questions also, but at least created on him a certain knowledge that there was a path to make. There was something that was ahead of him that would be probably indeed life-changing. And I think that the stimulus for people that enter the studies of tactical periodization is that they will understand that there's a different life ahead. There's a different way of seeing football. There's a different way of looking the way you prepare a football team. It will make you invest a lot in terms of being precise on what you want for your team. It makes you indeed go deep on questioning everything you do on your training sessions from the very beginning until the end. But as we heard on the seminar in Hamburg, it's not difficult. It's easy, by the way, but will require you investment. But it's so pleasing that you'll do it with full excitement, because basically you will work always on the belief that you create on a way of doing your work on football. I feel privileged that once I had the chance to be, of course, a pupil from Professor, but I feel most of all pleased that nowadays so many people have access, even not being in university, to the knowledge through this platform that you created, people created, Mara, you, all the recognized people that can speak about tactical periodization, and how indeed it's accessible, the knowledge to everybody. This is unbelievable for the world, let's say. And nowadays we have Marc in USA, we have people everywhere in the world that can speak and that can share the knowledge that Professor passed for people. And it's indeed beautiful to see people working under these ideas. And for the ones that are still, let's say, thinking about, don't doubt. just give the step, because it will be a lifetime experience for sure.
Thank you, Miguel. Well, guys, does anyone have any final question for Marc?
If we have a little bit time, I would ask Felipe, as always.
Yilmaz, I knew you had a question.
Always. But very, very little question, because I have some friends here at the moment watching, and it would be helpful for them to understand trigger of
You always have friends everywhere.
Yeah. Marc, thank you for being here. It's such a privilege for us. But as you know, tactical periodization has, as Miguel Cardoso explained, is a life changer and has a lot of references, neuroscience, as you mentioned, sleep, nutrition, everything. And as a new coaches we are learning this tactical periodization. There's a deep references, and what is your would be an advice for us to not get lost in these huge references as we are trying to change our lives as a coach, trying to change our way of seeing football? What would be your simplification to make it more simple for us to understand, not to get lost? Thank you.
I think Miguel touched it a little bit in his answer. The belief on it. You have to believe. When you believe in something, you follow. You follow. You know, and people that tend to become warm and cold, that's the people that start having way too many questions. And I think with what has helped me is I've been, even if I know I'm still learning because it's still evolving, I've been very warm with it. And that's my first advice to you. The second advice is try to study it in the best of your capability. Really try to understand it and then apply it. Because what helped me believe in it more is the application of it. You know, it's like if you only watch a guy play, you want to learn how to play guitar, but you only watch YouTube videos and you never buy a guitar. It's not going to help you. You need to watch the YouTube, you need the teacher, and you need the guitar to play in it, right? So my advice to you is believe in it, study it to the best of your ability, and then put it in practice. Put it in practice with your teams. But while you're putting in practice, have the belief. Have the belief. And look, one of the experiences I had when I worked at Soul Park Rangers in Kansas City, my assistant coach was a big believer of tactical periodization. So me and him, we were rubbing off each other, and it was always, man, today, let's go. Today, let's go. And I think your surrounding, how you apply it, it's important. And then with time, Yilmaz is your name, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Then with time, Yilmaz, you're gonna keep on growing with it. But really put it in practice. Test it, you know.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think that's it. Marc,
Well,
thank you again. Hope you again.
Thank you.
It was the first of many times.
It was a real pleasure for me. I think as coaches, we have to give back. It's a hard world, the one we live in. And I feel very, very privileged. I'm sure there's incredible football minds here, and I just feel privileged that I had this opportunity to share with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys. See you soon, all of you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.